Check, check, check. I'm going live here. Hopefully, very time has something. All right, we're looking good. No drop frames. Let's get into it. All right, welcome back, folks. Another episode of GPT with me. Your host Travis Frisinger. It's building for generative AI with generative. I've titled the session "Prompt and Tuning Basics." I don't know what to call it. I just wanted to talk through a few things, kind of where I left off last time. Getting some prompts in, getting it working, going huzzah. Days. Got some examples. So just to recap, the whole idea is the Scribe AI project. Generative AI with telling my colleagues about that, specifically experience has been mainly with kind of Copilot, Copilot as a tool. We're looking at building a learning trail, kind of curriculum to teach folks internally about this. He comes from a data science background, and it's kind of cool to see these two spaces kind of work together. You're coming from more of a top down, from my perspective, and coming from a very data science point of view, and meeting in the middle around this kind of co-collaboration concept and how. So I'm probably going to continue digging into that. I think I had some imposter syndrome, anxiety. It's nothing special, but the more I talk to people, the more I realize that not everyone quite is there with this way, and folks do get there. They see but for the short term, definitely going to stay in this kind of AI engineer space. I think prompts and some of the mechanics of them. Stick to digging into the platform. The reason being is, the documentation is not overwhelmingly comprehensive. Get you going, but I think there's just a few chat prompt versus an instructional prompt. Instructional prompts because they're simple, straightforward, easy to get to, but maybe there's value in having more chain with a chat prompt. Differently, where I have two prompts chained together in a lane chain. There's some concepts there, some kind of elements, concepts, just some basic insights that I think I want to walk through, understand how testing and data sets work in the platform, observability a little more detail, really looking at trying to figure out where the gaps are in getting this more production ready. Given that I have prompts and like they can vary and things are a little bit different and it's good to know your tooling, how it works, right? Just trying to be an engineer here. Excuse me. Just I had espresso before, so you kind of have that frothiness in your mouth. Excuse me. All right, so basic overview. Trying to do that. Okay, so I've done a few minor tweaks with this whole thing. I do need very kind of focused here on the Python code, specifically around putting some metadata in. Not doing the best, most fancy thing in the whole world, right? Like the goal is just to kind of get this into a functional state, proof of concept, really. So the metadata is not done intelligently. Solution, something that quickly pick up. So the idea is I've got some metadata coming in. I'm now passing that through to transcripts. Sorry to pull that back. Transformation service now takes a dictionary. And if I go to one of the two places where it's used, if I drop into YouTube summary, it's going to pull out this thing called length. It's a metadata attribute that we set here. We got it set it to 3,000 characters. The idea being that, at some point I might want to change that. I might want to make that user control. Like, the thing we're looking at here is very much kind of the landing page. So it's going to pull through and it's going to come over here. Let's go look at our prompts. And it's going to inject a character length here. So before we were just injecting transcript, which is interesting, but it made me quickly realize just in prototyping there are definitely scenarios where I want a shorter transcript. I want sorry, I want a shorter summary. It's definitely something I think expose when I bring this controller to the back. It's a variable, so kind of getting things wired up. I did a little bit of tuning with this, really kind of digging into what does it take to make this happen. Tried getting it to say, hey, if there's no length there, being instructional. So if we look at this, if I say something like right, so I say get it. Okay, and I want to get it. Transcript possibly. Copy. This is where testing and data sets sections. This is getting annoying. Tooling in the platform to avoid this. Anyway, I'm going to start, and it just says trigger bad. Okay, so it's got a little smarter. A. See, it starts doing weird things, right? Right? Like, input sanitization is not going to happen here, right? That's something that's definitely going to want to happen higher up. So we invoke things. It works. But, it's a nice, simple way of injecting a variable, adding a little bit of dynamicism to the whole thing, which is great, which is really, really great. Kind of making it dynamic, simple variable injection, taking a static prompt and kind of working it out. Here's another one about context, specific context versus further dialogue. So the thing is, the summary one was cool, and then I got to this point where I've got this AI prompt to format for YouTube highlights. So YouTube highlights is a section where it gives you kind of a start time and a short description. It breaks it into what YouTube calls chapters. Now you can get it, you can provide that. I find it's a little bit more useful to provide that yourself. You tend to have a better overview, a little more metadata to feed into the whole algorithm. So I'm not doing that. I'm just using the transcript. The goal here was to kind of get this dialed in. So if I go look at that prompt, change that prompt there. Highlights. Okay. So this prompt had to change a fair bit. What I had been doing was just kind of giving it the transcript and telling it, hey, like use your intelligence to figure out when the last timestamp is in this, to make sure that the encodings, the highlights don't run over that. And I was constantly getting things at the boundary, over the boundary, or inconsistent. It just wasn't very good extracting that piece of information. So I kind of came to the dilemma I'm calling, continue like further refine dialogue or I could have went here and said, that's the piece that throws me off. Be sure to extract the last timestamp and verify. Right now it doesn't do. I'd have to change the prompt duration to get there. But like you'd think something like this or a little bit of additional context would be useful. You wouldn't want to directly inject that into your. But I did a little experimenting with just ChatGPT on the side, and I found that when I gave it a specific duration, like X seconds, it was way better at doing this. Now, the key being, if I just gave it seconds, if I just said, oh, it's 300 seconds long, it would still have the same problem. It wasn't very good because there was still kind of a translation step there, right? Like I'm still dealing with the time issue, still dealing with minutes when I'm telling you total seconds. And it didn't work. It was my first protocol. So like not to have that, but to kind of say, oh, duration is X seconds. It wasn't coming back super smooth. So what I ended up doing, coming here and using the format duration function, I told it to get the duration from the metadata. Passed through like we've already got. And then I formatted the same way I formatted on the UI, which gave this thing surprisingly the context that it needed. Just telling me like 38 minutes long, 2,000 some seconds. It started giving me way better summaries. So I've saved a few examples here. 32 minutes, transcript, highlights, reels looking better. Same thing. I've kind of plugged in, I think, I kind of like the additional description. I did like the fact that it was in Markdown, but that's not really. Here's some various examples of kind of running like minor variations of the current prompt. And biggest value came in getting a more refined example to give it. I think far more aligns to there was a bit of a lesson there in kind of like driving down the more dialogue, the more input versus kind of really locking this down and saying, hey, here's some really targeted context. It's almost tuning it in, right? Like going, it's working, but how do I make this a little bit better? A little bit feed into evals. Excuse me. If you haven't, you can check out my podcast where I kind of delve into more engineering focus process. Just like in TV, start out looking at space evals and you kind of stood natural human way to building conversational AI systems. Poke at it a bit, kind of guide it towards right, and you go forward from there. One thing I really learned, I really can't emphasize this enough, is cost. Prior to this, I've only spent a handful of dollars. API calls, tinkering. My costs have shot up drastically. Projects, you'll see I've spent over $7 on just testing prompts in the playground. Now I do have some really large inputs. Let's take time. Obviously, it's done a lot less runs than this, but here's where kind of having a more curated data set. So even if you're doing kind of a vibe space, throw things at it, see how it approach, kind of get going, get started. I'll be mindful of your data set size. Token based, the more tokens I go, the more I throw at it, the more I expect, the more cost it's going to be. So I ran out of money, gave me charge on for good reason. I would just be like, oh, I spent $200 on OpenAI credits. highly likely I'd have to have something go completely awry. But like there's a cost component here. Maybe something I need to factor into the kind of location where this is using. There's a basic cost check. It figures out if you run this. I don't know. It's a thought. I'm sure there's probably already a framework out there. But be aware, curate your data sets. That's what we're going to go not in this section, but probably in the next section. This section is just a quick Friday afternoon. Just simply document so that I don't lose sight of this because my overarching goal, right, build thought leadership. All right, let's go back to here. So yeah, data cost size definitely taking a action from this for the next session, and we'll dig into a little bit more about the links going to help us. So obviously, changing a few things in the prompts led to some thinking about code, like what do you do when the change? I made probably what we consider a classic Google here. I can't change this now. I'm stuck with this an intuitive name. Now I could go to the code. And I could maybe hide this behind a variable so it's not a string. There's definitely discussion to be had about kind of these. It's that balance because everything's perfectly abstracted versus like, hey, this is good enough to move forward. Right, quite likely right now I'm stuck in the I've gotten three good examples. Well, I do, but not enough variance yet. Understand? I haven't really kind of played with it enough to understand the patterns. Maybe these are solved problems. Maybe people. I'm not gonna go make a constant. Like, just like so much extra overhead. It's likely to just be modeled. Some data is a little bit intelligent. I'm sure there are things I could do here to kind of just make this go explicitly, which becomes a little bit pattern here. But it's something I'm noodling on. Something I'm thinking about. How do I address this? Well, my third suggestion would be to fork it and to replace your strings and use that version. That is the honest best solution I have right now. If you end up with a situation where deal, fork it, carry it. Now, maybe you're not. Maybe you're not doing this. Chain's ability to programmatically. Something I will probably have to consider as a product, kind of opening up the opportunity for but I find a way to do that. I don't know. Oh, here we go. Topic, chain, some pushing variables. So maybe if you're coming from that perspective, it might be slightly easier. Maybe some metadata you could pull in, but it's still going to be tough. It's still going to be pull prompt the same way. Obviously, if you're doing this, you've got more to worry about now. You've got to think through all of that stuff as well. Probably going to have to explore this, like I said. I just want to get through a little bit more of the fun. Fork and map and code. You got the option of forking, got the option of putting behind a constant, and kind of just going from there. I'm trying to think how would you store. I'm in a prompt variables and code, so they got me thinking about, oh gosh, like how do you manage that? How do you know? What does it look like? Well, I don't have a good answer. I don't. I'm sure there's a way of building some kind of abstraction that sits here, proxy or broker those kind of things. I'm just not there yet. I'm still in the very like just how does this see, there's not a lot of code. That's the most variable place in this right now. Are those pieces, and I can likely pull this entire thing out for higher level abstraction where I'm just dealing with the name of the prompt, any API keys it needs. Deserialize that into an object that just gets deployed. And you can definitely see a path to it, but like I said, I'm still not trying to push that to that stage. So for right now, we're doing the ugly thing. Excuse me. And more so like it becomes really hard to run experiments. And they want 3.5, like I'm cost. Reduce a bit of cost here. Managing the models next to your prompt feels all right. So like I said, this is gonna be a quick one. Future, where am I going to go from this? Well, I want to kind of dig into this idea of tuning, probably just a little more exploration of the platform. How do I continue moving from my current based approach of evals to production worthy evals? How do I get the right data? How do I get the right monitoring? How do I move through some alerting? Um, tuning. Set up So I imagine next week I'm going to spend at least one more, possibly up to three more sessions just on this space. Probably maybe two. I just want to make sure we're all informed. There's value in continuing to build this, as well as continuing to explore the codex problem workflow. But for now, that's all I got. I just wanted to talk a little bit about prompts. Anyway, I hope you all found